What do you have to do when you want to sit in the front seat of a Japanese car? You gotta say, I call Shogun. Not bad, huh? All right, hello, 7th grade. Today we're going to be doing a review of our Chapter 12 and 13 Study Guide Vocabulary. Then on Monday, we're going to have a Zoom review of everything in Chapter 12 and 13. It will be an opportunity for you to ask me any questions you want about Japan before we take our test on Tuesday. All right, so let's jump right into it. Our first vocab word is shogun. So the shogun is the supreme military leader of Japan. It was originally a temporary position, but after Minamoto Yoritomo took power, he turned it into a permanent position. Right, so Minamoto Yoritomo changed the definition of shogun. So shogun used to mean supreme military leader of Japan. It was a temporary position. You work for the emperor. After Minamoto Yoritomo became shogun, shogun became a permanent position in Japan. Right? And it was basically ruler of all of Japan, but it was not the emperor. All right, no drama. No drama is a serious, intense Japanese play, right? And it has a few features. Let me flip over to Chapter 13, Section 1. That way I can list a few of the features off for you. So it has a simple, bare stage. It uses costumes and masks. And then it's usually based on like a Shinto legend. There are 5 categories that make up no dramas, but you don't need to know those 5 categories. All right, Constitution of the 17 Articles. The Constitution of the 17 Articles was a constitution. That means it's a governing document for Japan. It was based on the Confucian principles of harmony. It was also based on Buddhist principles. The Constitution of the 17 Articles was implemented by Prince Shotoku to try to unify Japan under himself and also under the emperor. All right. It also gave the government, I left this out, it also gave the government important authority to collect taxes. All right, so that's the third thing you need to know. Gave the government authority to collect taxes. Next, Fujiwara. The Fujiwara were a Japanese family that supplanted the power of the emperor through marrying into the royal family. Right, so when the emperor of Japan started to lose his power, he first lost his power to the Fujiwara clan, a powerful Japanese family that kept marrying into the emperor's family and thereby weakening the emperor's power and taking power for themselves. Archipelago. Japan is an archipelago. So what exactly is an archipelago? It is a string of islands, right? Or a chain of islands. So Japan is an archipelago. Hawaii is another kind of archipelago. So it's a connection of islands. All right. Next word, Nara. So Nara was the capital of Japan. It was based on the Chinese capital. However, it did not have an external wall. Do you remember why? Because Japan felt safe from invaders. It wasn't worried about being invaded, so they didn't bother to build a wall at Nara. Right? So Nara, again, is the capital of Japan, based on the Chinese capital. It did not have a wall. And then what happened at Nara? the Buddhist monasteries became too powerful, and so in order to preserve their power, the emperors moved the capital to Heinkyo, aka Kyoto. All right, next one. Regent. So what is a regent? Well, the regent is a person who governs a country in the name of a ruler who is too young or for some other reason is unable to rule. Right? So, who was Japan's first major regent that we know about? It would be Prince Shotoku. Remember, we don't call him Emperor Shotoku, we call him Prince Shotoku. Right? He ruled in place of his aunt. Right? His aunt was the empress, and for whatever reason, she wasn't able to rule, so Prince Shotoku functioned as her regent. Right? He's not the emperor, but he basically has all of the emperor's powers. He serves in place of the emperor. Okay, Nichiren form. Nichiren form is a form of Japanese Buddhism. It is based on... it's unique because it originated in Japan. It was based on the teachings of a Buddhist monk named Nichiren, who did not like the Pure Land Buddhist sect, right? And he blamed the Pure Land Buddhist sect for all of Japan's problems, right? So Nichiren teaches that enlightenment only comes from having complete faith in the Lotus Sutra. Right? That's what the Nichiren form is. It's anti-Pure Land Buddhism. It is. It originated in Japan. It teaches that enlightenment comes from having absolute faith in the Lotus Sutra. All right, kami. Kami are local Japanese Shinto gods. Simple definition. Feudalism. Feudalism was a, Feudalism was a social and economic system in Japan I'll go to feudalism in the book. That way I get the definition that you guys have. So it's a social system in which lords grant people land or other rewards in exchange for military service. Right? That's a good definition. Basically means if I'm a daimyo, I will give you protection, or I'll give you land, or I'll give you some kind of reward, and in exchange, you have to give me your freedom, right? You have to serve in my military. Maybe you have to work on my land. Maybe you have to give up some of your land to me, right? So feudalism shifts power away from the Heian court and from the emperor to local landowning lords, makes them very, very powerful. All right. Next, we have Zen Buddhism. Zen Buddhism is a form of Japanese Buddhism. What does Zen Buddhism teach? It teaches, it emphasizes meditation as the way to achieving enlightenment. Zen Buddhism also let's see. Oh yeah, Zen Buddhism was also very attractive to the samurai, right? Because the Zen techniques of meditation allowed the samurai to basically drive fear from their minds, right? And that's Zen Buddhism. Prince Shotoku, Japan's first regent, implemented the Constitution of the 17 Articles. He helped unify Japan under the power of the emperor. Well, actually, in his case, under the power of the Shogun. But what he did unified Japan under the power of the emperor. Yeah. All right, cool. Next, daimyo. Daimyo are local land-owning lords who benefited the most from feudalism, right? That's what the daimyo were. They were also in charge of small armies, and samurai were fiercely loyal to them, right? So the daimyo are not the highest ranking members of Japanese society, right? But they did have probably the most powerful daimyos were more powerful than the shogun or the emperor, right? Because they had extreme wealth, they had powerful armies behind them, they owned a lot of land, right? The emperors and the shoguns would owe them favors, like they would lend resources like soldiers to the emperor, to the shoguns, and so the emperors and the shoguns would kind of owe them. All right, Hankyo, aka Kyoto, the second capital of Japan under the emperors. Remember, they moved from Nara to Kyoto in order to take power away from the Buddhist monasteries. All right. Oh, and Hankyo, or Kyoto, is also where Japan's cultural development kind of exploded, right? The courts at Hankyo are where a lot of poetry and novels were written, and there's a lot of cultural development going on at that court. All right, Ring of Fire. The Ring of Fire refers to it refers to Japan's location. It's a region of volcanoes and earthquakes in the Pacific Ocean. It also includes a lot of hot springs. Basically, it's called the Ring of Fire because these hot springs and these volcanoes are still active, right? So they can go off at any time. So yes, Japan is located along the Ring of Fire, right? So it's basically a bunch of volcanoes and hot springs and stuff. The meeting of two tectonic plates in the Pacific Ocean. All right. The Tale of Genji. The Tale of Genji is the world's first novel. It was produced by a noblewoman named Murasaki Shikibu at the Heian court. It tells the story of a prince. Let's see. Basically, yeah, there's this handsome and talented, very well-loved prince named Genji. Same thing. Who is this object of interest of many of the ladies at court. And Murasaki Shikibu writes a novel telling this fictional story about this guy. Right, so it's a very popular novel. Tendai sect. Tendai sect is a form of Japanese Buddhism that focuses on, it's Japanese Buddhism formed by a Japanese Buddhist monk who travels to China and basically copies Great Raft Buddhism and brings it over to Japan. Right? So it teaches that all living beings are part of the universal Buddha, and all living beings are capable of being saved, basically. It's the idea that Buddhism should be open to everyone, not just monks and nuns. All right, so Tendai sect, aka Great Raft Buddhism. All right, kana. Kana refers to Japanese writing. So in China, the language that was used relied on something called characters. Characters are not like letters. Characters are symbols that represent words or ideas, phrases. And at first, Japan copied a lot of these characters from China, but as Japan started to become more independent from China, Japan adapted these Chinese characters into kana. Kana is a set of symbols that stand for sounds. It's kind of like an alphabet, right? So, or a kana would be like similar to a letter in the alphabet, right? Although they don't stand for sounds like letters in the alphabet do. Instead, kana stand for syllables, right? So in the word Japan, right, we have two syllables, Japan. Right? So you'd have a kana for ja and a kana for pan. And you put them together, it makes Japan. All right. Taika reform. Taika reforms refer to the reforms after the unification efforts of Prince Shotoku. They were basically changes in the way that Japanese government worked to help unite Japan and strengthen the power of the emperor. So Taika means great change. It's a series of laws that did those things. So it made everyone subject to the emperor. It made all the property in Japan the property of the emperor. It allowed the clan leaders to take paid government jobs. Let's see. Oh, and it established criminal law and officially made the Yamato clan the only place that a Japanese emperor could come from. Right? So those were the Taika reforms. Right, in the next video, I will answer questions 1 through 12.